House number 1. This Queen Anne mansion in Bloomington, Illinois has been sitting on the National Register of Historic Places since July 20th, 1978. Built in 1856, it was designed by local architect George H. Miller, and the man literally signed his work into the house itself. There's a stained glass window right at the entrance with his name etched directly into the glass. Whoever walks through that front door walks under the architect's signature first. The exterior alone gives this place away. A hexagonal tower rises off the southeast corner, capped with a conical dormer roof, and the front entrance is a stone archway flanked by columns like something out of a much older estate. At 3,317 square feet, this house looks less like a family home and more like a small castle dropped into a residential street. Inside is where it gets strange. The listing describes the home as ready for restoration, which is real estate language for completely untouched. Photos show peeling green wallpaper hanging off the walls in sheets, water-stained ceilings bubbling and cracking, and furniture still sitting exactly where it was left. A Victorian settee, an antique piano, a curved glass display cabinet, all frozen in place inside a room that's falling apart around them. Nobody cleared this house out. They just walked away and left the furniture behind to rot alongside the walls. There are 2 wood burning fireplaces inside. One in the family room and one in the living room. One of them is wrapped in deep teal tile with an ornate wooden mantel, sitting right next to a dark wood staircase with hand-turned balusters. It's beautiful and it's decaying at the same time. Multiple fireplaces in a house this old means multiple rooms that once needed heat just to survive an Illinois winter. And now they're just sitting cold and stained. Upstairs holds 3 bedrooms, all hardwood floors, all original. But there's a detail in the listing that's easy to miss. This house has a full attic with an interior staircase, meaning there's an entire additional level above the bedrooms that isn't even counted in the official room list. The listing calls it unfinished. Nobody says what's up there. Out back is a detached 3-car garage, all brick, with a loft space the listing says is ready to be finished. Another undefined space attached to this property, sitting empty, waiting for a purpose nobody's assigned yet. This home sold for just $88,750 in October 2024, despite a Zestimate of $129,900 and an estimated sales range that runs as high as $164,000. That means this historic architect-signed mansion sold for tens of thousands of dollars under what it's actually estimated to be worth. Something priced that far below market value on a home this significant usually means one thing: nobody wants to deal with what's inside it. The listing is blunt about it too. Sold as is. Agent, interest only. Translation: this isn't a listing for regular buyers walking in with a mortgage and a moving truck. This is a listing aimed at investors and flippers, people who deal in properties too far gone for anyone else to touch. Built in 1856. Landmarked by the federal government in 1978. Designed and personally signed by its own architect. Left with the furniture still inside, the wallpaper peeling off in sheets, and an entire attic level nobody's talking about. Sold for far under its own estimated value as is to whoever's willing to take on a piece of Bloomington history that everyone else in town has apparently already given up on. House number 2. This Victorian in Quincy. Illinois has a sale history that makes no sense on paper. In September 2020, it sold for just $15,000, a 58% drop from whatever it was worth before that. 4 years later, in September 2024, it hit the market again, this time listed at $69,000. That's a 360% jump in asking price on the exact same house in 4 years. Then it started dropping. $64,900. Then $59,900. It went pending, then contingent, and finally closed in January 2025 for $54,000. A house that flipped for pennies got relisted at a massive markup and still couldn't hold that price. Inside, the listing casually mentions this home has 2 full kitchens. Not a kitchenette or a wet bar, an entire second kitchen somewhere inside this house. The listing frames it as a bonus for multi-generational living or rental potential, but doesn't say where it is, what condition it's in, or why a single-family Victorian built for one household needed 2 full kitchens in the first place. There are 4 fireplaces spread across this home, which tells you how many rooms once depended on wood heat just to survive an Illinois winter. Photos show one fireplace with ornate wood carving and blue tile, sitting in a bedroom next to a stark black 4-poster bed frame draped in sheer white curtains, the kind of piece that looks staged for something other than sleeping. Walk further in and the house starts showing its age hard. One room has exposed brick walls, mismatched blue-trimmed windows, and what looks like old mattresses and construction debris shoved into a corner, next to a stack of tools and a portable air conditioner unit. This isn't a finished home. This is a home mid-gut, frozen somewhere between renovation and abandonment. The staircase is original woodwork, dark polished banister against faded striped wallpaper, but at the top of the stairs, through an open doorway, you can see straight into a room that's been stripped down to bare studs. Red insulation exposed, no drywall, nothing finished. So this house has one hallway with intact century-old woodwork leading directly into a room that looks like a demolition site. Out back, there's a small detached shed. The kind of structure so ordinary it wouldn't get a second look anywhere else. But on a property with this much unexplained history, sold twice for wildly different numbers, with a second hidden kitchen and half-finished rooms throughout, even the shed reads like something worth asking about. The listing itself only lists 3 bedrooms and 1 full bathroom, despite the home spanning 3,116 square feet across 2 full levels of 1,558 square feet each. Do the math, and that's an enormous amount of square footage for a home with so few actual functioning rooms listed. Baseboard heat, central air, a full basement. On paper, it reads like a normal old house. In the photos, it reads like nobody ever finished deciding what this place was supposed to be. Built at an unlisted date. Old enough to have 4 fireplaces and a wraparound porch with turned wood columns, this house sold for $15,000, sat for 4 years, then got relisted at more than 4 times that price before crawling back down to $54,000 to finally close. 2 kitchens, nobody explains. Rooms stripped to the studs sitting directly next to fully intact Victorian woodwork. A shed out back nobody mentions twice. Whatever happened inside this house between 2020 and 2024, it left behind more questions than the listing ever answers. House number 3. This mansion in South St. Louis was built in 1884 by Ferdinand Harold, a pioneer of the city's brewing industry and president of the Cherokee Brewery. And he made sure nobody would ever forget it. Carved directly into the stone archway above the front entrance is a Cherokee chief keystone, a permanent stone face staring down at anyone who walks through the door, put there specifically to mark this house as his. At 6,000 square feet with 12-foot ceilings running through most of the home, this Richardsonian Romanesque revival estate looks less like a house and more like a fortress. The exterior is a curved brick and stone tower rising multiple stories, with a rounded turret wrapping the front corner and stone archways carved with detailed ornamental work. It overlooks Benton Park, and from the outside it still reads as one of the most architecturally significant buildings in the neighborhood. Step inside and the story completely changes. The listing says flatly that the house is gutted and ready for renovation. Photos confirm it. Ceilings are stripped down to exposed wood joists and beams, the plaster torn away entirely, leaving nothing but skeletal wood framing overhead. Walls are stripped to bare brick and lath in multiple rooms. A fireplace sits gutted down to its brick shell. No mantle, no surround, just an empty brick cavity built into the wall. One hallway shows spray-painted markings on the wall, a red circle with a slash through it, the kind of symbol construction crews use to flag something. No explanation of what it's marking or why. The hallway leads toward a dark wooden staircase visible at the far end, barely lit, disappearing into the back of the house. Structurally, this home has 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, which tells you this wasn't built as a simple family home. A house with more bathrooms than bedrooms, built by a 19th century brewing executive, points to a residence designed for entertaining staff and constant movement of people through it. The listing mentions a detached, oversized garage that used to be a full carriage house apartment. Past tense. Someone lived out there once, above where horses and carriages were kept, and that entire second living space is described now only as an opportunity to restore what used to exist. It's gone, and whatever remains of it is just a shell waiting for someone to decide if it comes back. Here's the financial hook buried in the listing. This property qualifies for state tax credits of 25% and federal tax credits of 20%, adding up to 45% of qualified rehabilitation expenses in transferable tax credits. That's the government all but admitting this building is too significant to lose, while simultaneously confirming it's in bad enough shape that restoring it needs nearly half its renovation costs subsidized. A 400 amp underground electrical service has already been installed, which means someone started this renovation and then stopped. The wiring's in. The gutting is done, but everything else, the plaster, the walls, the staircases, the carriage house, all of it is sitting exactly where the work left off. Built in 1884 by a brewery president who carved his own emblem into the entrance. Gutted down to the studs, spray paint markings left on bare walls, a carriage house apartment reduced to just a memory in the listing description, and a fireplace stripped down to an empty brick shell. Asking $315,000 in a city already carrying a reputation for violence, for a mansion that's been stripped to its bones and left standing, waiting for somebody to either finish what was started here or leave it exactly as gutted as they found it. House number 4. This 1877 Colonial in Salem. Ohio is famous in its own town before you even know its history. The listing calls it a local landmark, built around one specific feature: spiral chimneys. Not straight brick chimneys, spiral ones, twisted like a corkscrew rising off the roofline. There are 3 of them, all visible from the street, all carved with the same twisting pattern like someone wanted this house recognizable from blocks away. At 2,581 square feet across 2 stories, this brick colonial has 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and 3 fireplaces built into a house with no central air at all. Forced air heating only. Whatever warmth exists here comes from those chimneys or nothing. The exterior brick shows heavy staining and discoloration in patches, dark streaks running down from the roofline like water damage that's been left alone for years. One section near the bay window shows what looks like a boarded-up opening, plywood nailed directly over what used to be a window or door, just sealed shut and left that way. Inside, the ceiling in one room is peeling apart in giant sheets, wallpaper and plaster hanging down in curls, exposing bare lath underneath. Right below that collapsing ceiling sits an ornate wood-carved archway with turned spindles, the kind of detailed woodwork you'd expect in a house built for someone with money in 1877. Beautiful craftsmanship rotting from the top down. One doorway in the house has been completely boarded over from the inside with raw plywood nailed shut between 2 carved wood pillars that clearly once framed a functioning door. Somebody sealed off whatever's on the other side of that doorway, and the listing gives no explanation for what that space is or why it's closed off. The main staircase is dark carved wood, ornate turned newel posts, leading down into a stairwell lit with colored light streaming through stained glass, reds and greens and purples scattered across the steps. It looks striking in photos. It also means you're descending into a stairwell where the only light source comes filtered through century-old glass, colors shifting across the walls as you go down. Despite all of this, the sale happened almost instantly. Listed March 29th, 2025, pending by April 2nd, sold by April 18th. 7 days on market total before it went pending. A fixer-upper this deep into disrepair sold in under 2 weeks for its full asking price of $118,770. No negotiation, no price drops. The listing openly suggests converting this into commercial office space instead of a home, which tells you something about how far gone the residential condition actually is. Nobody's pretending this is move-in ready. They're offering 2 different futures for it: restore it as a house, or gut it entirely for business use. Built in 1877, famous around Salem for its spiral chimneys, sold in exactly 1 week despite peeling ceilings, boarded over doorways, and windows sealed with plywood from the inside. 3 twisted brick chimneys still standing over a house where at least one doorway has been deliberately closed off, one ceiling is falling in sheets, and colored light spills down a staircase leading into a house nobody's fully explained the condition of. House number 5. This mansion in Independence, Kansas has 0 bathrooms, 5 bedrooms, 7,111 square feet, and not a single working toilet anywhere in the house. Whoever buys this place is starting from actual zero. Built in 1874 for Norris Bennett Bristol as a plain 2-story square brick home. Nothing special, just a solid brick box. Then in 1902, oil millionaire Albert P. McBride bought it and completely transformed the place, adding the round brick tower that now dominates the entire structure and pushing it into full Romanesque style. That tower is the first thing you see, rising above the roofline with arched windows stacked one on top of another, wrapped entirely in brick, climbing higher than the rest of the house like it was built to watch the street. In 1949, the house stopped being a private residence altogether. It got converted into apartments to house workers from the nearby Independence Army Airfield during World War II. So, for a stretch of this house's life, strangers were living stacked inside it in individual units, inside a mansion originally built for one wealthy family. Then, in the late 1990s, it was abandoned completely. Restoration efforts have technically been ongoing since 1999, over 25 years now, and the listing still says it needs a lot more work. The exterior alone tells you how far gone it is. The wraparound porch has support columns with paint peeling in long strips, wood siding above it warped and falling away from the frame entirely in some sections. Round brick tower on one side looks solid. Everything else looks like it's rotting in real time next to it. Walk up to the property and there's a locked iron gate at the base of a long concrete staircase, fully fenced off from the street, overgrown bushes crowding both sides. You have to go through that gate and up those stairs just to reach the front door. Inside, one room shows a fireplace with a green tiled surround, still standing, but the ceiling above it is completely gone, stripped down to exposed wood beams and insulation. Floors are covered in dust and debris. Windows still have their original glass and trim, but the room around them has been gutted down to bare wood. The staircase inside is the detail that stops you. Hand-painted wallpaper still clings to the wall beside it, faded pink flowers on vines, an actual mural painted directly onto the plaster. Above it, the ceiling paper is peeling down in long torn sheets, hanging like it's been slowly unraveling for decades. That painted staircase wall might be the last fully intact piece of what this house looked like when it was still McBride's Romanesque mansion. Asking price is $95,000 for over 7,000 square feet of space, a converted tower, a wraparound porch, and a hand-painted stairway mural, all with 0 functioning bathrooms and a restoration effort that's already outlived a quarter century without finishing. Built in 1874, transformed by an oil millionaire in 1902, turned into wartime worker housing in 1949, abandoned by the late 1990s, and still mid-restoration after 25 years. A locked gate, a crumbling porch, a stripped ceiling over an intact fireplace, and a painted staircase wall that's outlasted everything else inside. Whatever this house is going to become next, it's been waiting on someone to finish the job since before some of the people watching this video were even born. House number 6. This Victorian in North Adams, Massachusetts was built in 1880 as a single grand residence, and at some point got carved up into 5 separate apartments. 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms, 4,621 square feet, and each unit was wired with its own separate 100 amp electrical panel. That's 5 families worth of power running through one house that started life as somebody's private home. The centerpiece here is the staircase. A gracious curved staircase rises through the entry, dark mahogany railing wrapping around itself in a continuous spiral, climbing all the way up to a 3rd floor unit. That top unit has its own private roof deck, looking straight out over downtown North Adams. Whoever got that top apartment had the best view in the building and their own private curved staircase leading up to it. But the listing photos show exactly how far this house has fallen since it stopped being 5 separate homes. Wallpaper is peeling off in giant curled sheets throughout the upper floors, hanging down in strips over exposed plaster. One doorway shows a set of paneled double doors standing open into an empty room. An old cast iron radiator sitting silent beneath a wall stripped bare, ceiling stained dark, with water damage directly above the doorframe. The staircase itself, the same one leading to that roof deck unit, is cracked straight through the plaster wall running alongside it. A long fracture line running the full length of the stairwell, right next to peeling floral wallpaper that's curling away from the wall in sheets. This is the most architecturally impressive part of the entire building, and it's visibly failing. Outside, the roofline is where it gets strange. A boxy 3rd floor addition sits above the main roof, its own shingled walls and windows, but part of that upper structure has collapsed inward. You can see broken shingles and exposed framing where the roof deck should be intact. Whatever that 3rd floor unit looked like when someone actually lived up there enjoying that downtown view, it's now partially open to the weather. The basement underneath all 5 units has a dirt floor, not concrete, dirt, sitting below a building that once housed multiple paying tenants simultaneously. Full basement, unfinished, described in the listing with a bulkhead entry and both dirt and concrete sections mixed together. Here's the number that stands out. This home's estimate dropped 38% in a single year. Not appreciated, dropped, and the listing openly categorizes the property's condition as a fixer. A 5-unit Victorian building in a walkable downtown with its own detached 2-car garage and full basement, losing over a third of its estimated value in 12 months while sitting on the market. Built in 1880, subdivided into 5 separate apartments, each with their own power panel, centered around a curved staircase that once led to a private rooftop unit that has since partially caved in. Marble fireplaces, original woodwork, intact hardwood floors throughout, all of it wrapped inside a building where the walls are cracking, the wallpaper is sloughing off, and the 3rd floor sits open to the elements above what used to be someone's private view of the whole town. House number 7. This house in Keokuk, Iowa was built in 1850, and its price history alone reads like something's wrong with it. Back in 2005, it sold for $45,000. By 2018, it listed for $79,900, dropped to $68,000, and was pulled off the market entirely in 2019. Then it disappeared for 7 years. In February 2026, it resurfaced listed at $345,000, a 407% jump from where it last sold. Within weeks, that number started collapsing, down to $333,000, then $279,000, a 16% drop in a single move, then $273,000. And finally, on July 16th, 2026, it was pulled from the market completely. Right now, it's sitting off market, untouched, at a tax-assessed value of just $68,300, at 4,692 square feet with 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms. This all-brick home sits on a stone foundation with masonry fireplaces throughout. No air conditioning listed anywhere. Just electric heat working against a brick structure built to hold on to cold. The exterior shows heavy brick deterioration, patches of white paint peeling away to expose bare red brick underneath in long streaks running down multiple stories, like the walls themselves are shedding their skin. Inside, the rooms tell two completely different stories depending on which photo you're looking at. One dining room is fully furnished, dark burgundy velvet curtains framing every window, a marble fireplace mantel, gold framed mirror, a table set with a white cloth, and a floral centerpiece like guests are expected any minute. Then in another room, a vintage Philco refrigerator sits next to older cabinetry, an electric stove with round coil burners still installed, kitchen frozen somewhere in a decor decade that stopped updating a long time ago. A sitting room shows dusty rose Victorian-style furniture, an antique chaise, ornate armchairs, positioned under an arched doorway, everything staged like it's still lived in. But look at the full exterior shot from the back, and the building tells a different truth. Windows are boarded, brick is stained dark with water damage running down from the roofline in long vertical streaks, and there's an old fire escape ladder bolted to the back wall, rusted and hanging slightly loose from the brick. This home has one single parking space listed, for a property over 4,600 square feet with 5 bedrooms. Whatever this house once was, boarding house, converted apartments, single residence, the numbers don't match a normal single-family setup. Here's the part that stands out most. This house is currently off-market. Not for sale, not for rent. Just sitting there after being delisted for the second time in 7 years, this time falling from $345,000 down through 4 separate price drops before vanishing from listings altogether. A tax-assessed value of $68,300 on a home that was asking 5 times that just months earlier. Built in 1850, sold for $45,000 in 2005, relisted at over $345,000 in 2026. Then unraveling through 4 straight price cuts before disappearing from the market entirely in July. Furnished rooms staged like someone still lives there, sitting behind a water-stained brick exterior with a rusted fire escape bolted to the back wall. Whoever owns this house right now isn't selling it, isn't renting it, and isn't explaining why a $345,000 asking price collapsed by more than 80% before vanishing completely. House number 8. This 1895 Victorian in downtown Bloomington, Indiana, is known locally as the Batman House, not the superhero. Ira C. Batman, the son-in-law it was built for. John Waldron Sr. commissioned this entire mansion as a wedding gift for his daughter and Batman, and hired architect John Nichols to design it in a blend of French Second Empire, Queen Anne, and Romanesque Revival, all wrapped in solid Indiana limestone from top to bottom. Twin stone turrets rise off the front corners like something out of a castle, standing 2 blocks from the courthouse square. At 7,570 square feet, this house has cycled through identities for over a century. Before it was anything else, it was Weir Funeral Home. At some undocumented point, it became the Labor Temple, a union meeting hall nobody knows exactly when that started or ended. Then, in 1974, Dennis and Nancy Garrett bought it and spent 2 years converting it into their home and an antique shop called The Garrett, which opened in 1976 and ran continuously until Nancy passed away in December 2023. 50 years in one family's hands, sitting on top of a funeral home and a union hall nobody kept records on. The listing says flatly that all of those uses have been lost to history. A building that held bodies, then labor meetings, then 5 decades of antiques, and nobody can say for certain what happened in between or exactly when. Inside, the Garrett's collection is still visible in the photos. Dark carved wood display cabinets, an ornate cast iron fireplace insert framed in pink tile, a stained glass hanging lamp shaped like a lotus flower glowing over an empty room. But look past the antiques, and the house itself is falling apart underneath them. Ceilings are bubbling and peeling in wide sheets of paint, walls stained yellow and pink with water damage bleeding through, floor tiles cracked and mismatched in patches of green and gray like they were replaced piecemeal over decades. A vintage refrigerator sits alone in an empty pink room, plugged into a house that's clearly been failing around it for years. Structurally, this home has a library, a foyer, a formal dining room, and 3 rooms in the basement labeled simply exercise room, playroom, and workshop. Total finished space runs 4,000 square feet across the main levels, but the listing says the attic and lower level push the total usable space to somewhere between 7,500 and 8,000 square feet. Nobody's giving an exact number for a house this significant. Here's the strangest detail. This home isn't selling through a normal listing. It's going through an online auction, bidding open for an entire month, closing at 8 p.m. with a soft close feature, meaning any bid placed in the final 3 minutes automatically extends the deadline. A 130-year-old landmark, home to a funeral parlor, a labor hall, and 5 decades of antiques, being sold off through a countdown timer designed to trigger bidding wars in the final seconds. Built in 1895 as a wedding gift, cycling through a funeral home, an unrecorded labor hall, and a half-century antique shop that only ended when its owner passed away. Peeling ceilings, water-stained walls, and floor tile patched together in mismatched colors sit directly beneath twin stone turrets that still dominate the skyline near the courthouse square. Whatever this building has witnessed across 130 years of shifting purpose, it's now being auctioned off in a countdown that rewards whoever refuses to stop bidding last.